A lot of people come in to see me where they said they went on an antibiotic and it worked great, and then they got off of it and everything went back to normal or it got worse. The same with like birth control or with certain retinols and et cetera, et cetera. So with us, it's really looking at either preventing the acne in the first place when we start to see that, mom's had it, dad's had it, and
Yeah.
it flares every month or around their period or
Welcome, though. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And, as we know, it's all about going skin deep, going really, really deep into just understanding, some of the conditions that people may have or the issues that they have, but going into the skin very deep versus like the traditional way that we're kind of used to. So I'm kind of curious. Please tell me what brought you to being into this industry and tell people a little bit more about yourself.
So I'm a licensed naturopathic doctor. I'm practicing in Ontario. I also have, different hats. I write for a health magazine for a supplement company. And I also work at the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine, where I went to school. So I do a lot of different things, but really, I didn't know that I was gonna ever become a naturopathic doctor. So it actually came across, I guess, my mindset when I was studying to go to med school. So I was studying for my MCAT, and it was that summer where my skin was probably at its absolute worst.
Yeah.
And I had gone to at least 4 or 5 dermatologists at the time. Nothing was working. Went to my family doctor. I had gone online and I was trying different things. And then I came across what I saw was a naturopath, and I
Hmm.
thought, I honestly was skeptical. I was like, I don't know what they do. I don't know how
Yeah.
this works. But I thought, I'll take the plunge. I'll see how it is. And I think from that one appointment, it really changed my whole outlook, not just on
Hmm.
my life and my skin, like at the time, but
Yeah.
where I kind of wanted to lead my life. So from there, I applied to the school, got in, and the rest is history. So I'm here now
That's so
practicing.
good. And it's so true that a lot of people's experience or where they kind of are in their career usually is something that kind of happens to them. It's like, this is what's bothering me. And now I'm kind of passionate about it. And now I'm going into that as a career. And I'm happy that you decided to be like a naturopathic doctor because, there's no offense to traditional doctors and traditional medicine. Obviously they
Yeah.
have their place and their purpose in the world. I just found that even when I was growing up, there wasn't very many naturopaths that, my doctor would talk about, or people would say, hey, go to this person to get, more further guidance in terms of like the concerns that you have. So how do you feel that, like before, not hearing too much, maybe you didn't hear that much about naturopathic doctors. And then now it's like there's an influx of them that you can go to. But nowadays it's not even going through a doctor to get to a naturopath. It's like I'm just going to go straight to a naturopath.
hmm And honestly, I mean, it's great for me because I'm like, I don't know, again, like you said, like 10 years back, I don't know that how they even heard about naturopaths
Yeah.
or, I mean, it's a resource that people aren't tapping into necessarily.
Hmm.
Um, and there's definitely more traction, more understanding now, but there's still a lot of, I think, myths to dispel around naturopaths and in general,
Hmm.
what we can and cannot do. Because I mean, some people come to me and they're like, "Okay, write me this prescription." And I'm like, "You're coming to the wrong person." Or
Yeah.
um, they expect sometimes like a quick fix, like, "Okay, you
Yeah.
can give me something and this huge breakout will go away in a few days." So I think a lot of the piece around naturopathic medicine needs to be education about what we can do. I mean, what we can't do, but what we can do and why we approach things the way we do. I mean, yes, it
Hmm.
is natural and there's importance to having natural treatments, but also it's about the lifestyle, the nutrition, about long-term preventative medicine and
Hmm.
treatments that aren't a band-aid solution, I guess you could say.
Oh, thank you for saying that. No, I'm happy you're saying the Band-Aid
Mhm.
solution because that's all that was. That's it. That's it. It was like, I have this issue, write me with a prescription. I have this issue. Please tell me how to get rid of it right away. But they're not really understanding it is literally masking a symptom. They're masking the true root cause of the issue. And that's why I'm so happy that you're saying that because
Yeah.
it's the honest truth right now. It's the honest truth that people really feel that that's the best way way to their health. But if they look at history, it's just we temporarily kind of get rid of it, but then it comes right back, but it comes back massive. It comes back in a
Yeah.
crippling way. So that's why I'm so happy about naturopath. I wish I knew about them when I was growing up, because if I did, I would have went straight to a naturopath versus going to my doctor. But then again, at the same time, it kind of brought me on the path where I'm in now, where I'm like, I need to spread awareness. I need people to know so much about it. But if they knew about it, if there was more awareness of naturopaths, I think from 10, 15, 20 years ago, I don't think, the whole world or society would be in such a crisis in terms of their overall health. And I'm so happy that, I have you on. Yeah, like, do you have a certain range of different people that you treat, or do you treat a specific kind of age group in terms of their skin?
So I would say I treat any skin really of any age.
Okay.
Obviously, different approaches for each, though. And that being said, I would say I almost know, even if a patient hasn't filled in their intake form and I know they're coming in for a skin concern, if they're young, it's usually eczema. If they're in their like
Mm,
teens, 20s, usually it's acne. And usually around menopause, rosacea is very common, or at least I see a lot of that. So I almost
okay.
can take an educated guess, but of course, there's always times where we have both, or we have three things, or I'm
Hmm.
surprised by something. It's like a new rash, or their dermatologist can't figure it out and they don't know why it's coming up, and they just give them like
Hmm.
hydrocortisone cream, and then it pops up in another area. So
Yeah.
it's always fun. It's always fun. Keeps me on
Yeah,
my
it's
toes.
it's almost like you're hitting. I forgot that game where you're hitting like the groundhog on the head. You're like, okay, let's get that one, let's get that one, let's get that one. You're just
Yeah.
constantly hitting it. So tell me, what is a naturopathic approach different to treating acne versus like the conventional kind of treatment that we kind of have out there?
Mhm. So I would say that in certain aspects it's the same. So it may include topical solutions, but it can also include things you take orally. I
Hmm.
would say the main difference is that it's more of a long-lasting solution that we're looking for. So again, with things like an antibiotic, a lot of people come in to see me where they said they went on an antibiotic and it worked great, and then they got off of it and everything went back to normal or it got worse. The same with like birth control or with certain retinols and et cetera, et cetera. So with us, it's really looking at either preventing the acne in the first place when we start to see that, mom's had it, dad's had it, and
Yeah.
it flares every month or around their period or something like that. So it's about finding kind of the root cause of why you're getting the acne in the first place rather than just seeing it and treating it with what we know. So again, finding the root cause and then finding a way to change your lifestyle and the things you eat, the way you manage stress, even your day-to-day life, so that the acne isn't flaring all the time and so that you don't need to rely on X, Y, and Z product or pharmaceutical for as long as you need to until potentially it goes away or potentially it just gets worse in time. You don't really know.
Yeah, no, thank you, because being a medical esthetician, so right now I work at a medical clinic, and well, my whole entire career I worked at some kind of medical clinic. So first as an educator for 15 years, then working into a different medical clinic, and now I'm at a new one. And there's always that consistent thing or theme that I always would find. I see people, whether they're young and it is birth control, or it's Accutane, or the third one, it's like my doctor, prescribed me tyrosinase or hydroquinone, or they gave me some kind of retinol on my skin. And I'm just like, oh my God, these things are going to like tear apart your skin. You don't realize the longevity of how those things could, hurt their skin, especially if they're not using it the right way, or using it with something that will be almost like a buffering agent in terms of delivery, because I find quite often when you're using hydroquinone or retinol and it's from the doctor's prescription, those things are not packaged together in terms of other ingredients that help the delivery of it. So it's just like raw on their face, and then they come in, they're like, oh, I'm so sensitive, I can't do this. And I'm like, well, first of all, you're on Accutane, so I can't touch you.
Yeah.
And then two, there's these other things that you're using that also make you super sensitive, and I can't touch you. So we first need to go back to your doctor and say, well, how long you're going to be on Accutane, or if we can get you off Accutane. And then let's go with a little bit more of a holistic approach of treating your skin. And the clinic that I was at before, we did have naturopaths there. And I'm like, I need you to speak to this person so that they can help you find a much more holistic way, because I'm not going to be a shortcut. I can do any skin treatment on your face all you want to, but there's still that root cause that we need to get into. So I'm happy that you're kind of really talking about that there is a more holistic way versus just going with topicals, because everyone wants that quick fix of like, let's just smooth it all out with this burning
Yeah.
thing and let's see if we can just take it off my face, when really it's like there's a much better route to get to.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't realize the fact that they can see their family doctor or their dermatologist and see us. Like it doesn't need to be an ultimatum. And I think a lot of times they'll start the visit with, "Oh, my dermatologist said this, but blah blah blah." I'm like, I'm not taking sides here. You know what I mean? I
Yes.
want to work with both of us. Like you can work with both of us, and that's the way medicine should be, but it's not always the case, right?
Yeah. Like this is the best way where you can actually have an open relationship.
Yeah,
You know
good,
what I
right?
mean? Like,
That's where we want it to happen.
like it's okay to date us all. You know what I mean? Like we're all dating together. We're not. You're cheating on me with my dermatologist. You're cheating on me with the doctor. Like this is the time where we can have an open relationship and have an open communication with each other, because in that way we can support each other's prescription or protocol or direction of how to support their skin, versus it being
Yeah.
like, well, my dermatologist told me to do this, so I can't do anything else. And it's like, no, goodness gracious, we could do so
Yeah.
many other things together.
And it's funny you say that because there's been plenty of times where patients come in on prescriptions that obviously their doctor's prescribed, and I'm the one who's educating them on actually how it works and why it was prescribed in the first place. Or even with the retinol, like you're saying, and they're saying like, my skin's burning, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, did they tell you to start, every few days or like twice a
Yeah.
week and build your way up? Like, no, we didn't get a chance to chat. And again, that's not necessarily the health provider's fault. Like they're busy. Like family doctors
Mm-hmm.
are extremely busy.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's why I'm here. So if you have questions, like I can help answer them or we can work to figure out what's going on, even with side
Yeah.
effects of medications. Like Accutane's a big one, plethora of side effects with that.
Yep.
Um, but
Yeah.
also, like I had a patient recently who has scalp psoriasis and was using
Mm-hmm.
their prescribed cream, like a steroid cream, and then noticed that her hair was starting to fall out in areas. And she was saying, I didn't know that that was a side effect. I didn't know that I could lose my hair if I put it on, my
Yeah.
hair follicles on my head.
That's
So
crazy. That's like
yeah, I mean, it's
self-deprecating, you know?
yeah, exactly. So there's lots of room for questions for education. And that's before we even dive into, yeah, how do we fix this or where do we go
Mm-hmm.
from here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I appreciate you saying that. It is like unfortunately it is very true that we do have, doctors that are extremely busy. They are going through and, giving as much help as they can. I think just what kind of frustrates me is that when we are giving such of these prescriptions out and so forth, there needs to have that education. There needs to be that bit of time to go through it. So it's whether that's like you said, speaking with a naturopath or someone to say, hey, I gave this prescription, let me refer you to the person. It's going to go further, deeper in terms of helping you kind of understand how to work this into your lifestyle, what to expect, what you can also use alongside of that. Because unfortunately, customers only can hear one thing, which is, how do I get to the solution? Let me slather my body with it. And it's like, no, we said
Mhm.
once a week, not once every day or once every 5 minutes. Because that to them, they're
Yeah.
like, I just need to get the solution. I need to get the solution versus saying, hey, we need to work your system to it. We need to work your tolerance to it. They're just getting straight to the finish line. And unfortunately, that finish line could damage them at the same time. You were touching upon, for example, like nutrition and lifestyle and other things that people can do to support that skin health. So tell me a little bit more about those other things so people can understand when they're dealing with acne, there are other things that they could do in their lifestyle or, in general nutrition that you could suggest.
So I would say like food is medicine. We have it every single day, and I think it's often overlooked as something that's an issue, or
Yes.
like when people have, I mean, it's quite obvious when someone has a gut issue, okay, maybe it's something you're eating, but when
Hmm.
someone has a skin issue, they don't always think it's to do with something they're eating.
Yeah.
So I know with acne, there is research. Sorry, lost my train of thought.
No,
There
go ahead.
is research.
Remember,
There
we're
is research
connected,
that
okay?
it's just like pause. So yeah, so with acne, there is research in terms of like the Mediterranean diet
Mm-hmm.
for the skin. Oh, to an extent, using fish oils is great, but if we could get a patient having fish, 2 times a week or just as a part of their regular diet,
Mm-hmm.
increasing fiber so that they're having those healthy bowel movements. Because if they are constipated and they're only going once or twice a week, that will show up on the skin and make their skin
Mm-hmm.
worse. Also, looking at dairy, there's a lot of research for dairy, and also the hidden ways in which dairy is in our diet. So, some people might say I'm dairy free, but then they're having a protein powder every day, which has whey, which is,
Yes.
in the dairy, or even other supplements they might be taking. If they're taking a high dose of B12 or doing B12 injections, that can
Mm-hmm.
make their skin worse. So, I mean, looking at food from that angle, there's a lot of different things that we can work on, but it really depends on what they're eating in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost easy when they have a not great diet or they're eating lots of processed
Yes.
foods because there's lots of things we can work on. But
Mm-hmm.
there are sometimes when patients come in and they have a super clean diet. They're eating all like great foods,
Mm-hmm.
organic, lots of fruits and veggies, and they still have the skin concern. And that's when I kind of move pillars to, okay, what else could be going on? Because now we don't think it's necessarily the food. And that's when I kind of dive into lifestyle. So part of it is hygiene, but usually I feel like that's not the case with the acne I see. Usually it's not the fact that, they're not cleaning their skin or they're not changing their pillowcases or they're not washing their makeup brushes. Of course, that can be a component of their skin
Okay.
health, but most of the time they're at the point where they've already tried a lot of things and they're quite diligent about keeping their skin clean, even to the point of maybe using too many products or
Yeah.
scrubbing there's too many exfoliants where
Mm-hmm.
their skin barrier is now broken and it's almost more prone to acne and other concerns. So working on that a bit as well as stress. I think stress is something that underlies most of the concerns in the body, skin and not in the skin.
Yeah.
And it's hard when a patient isn't necessarily aware that they're stressed because I think a lot of us, I mean, all of us are stressed to an extent, right? Life is stressful, but coming to terms with the fact that the stress that's subconsciously there every single day is now actually causing physical concerns is a hard connection to make for some people. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's there.
I love what you're talking about because it is true. Like you kind of deal with this process of elimination. And usually it's like start with the gut first in terms of like what are you eating? And I there's so many times I can count on my hand the amount of times I have to tell somebody, okay, so you're gonna have to stop eating that church's chicken, or like, you know,
Yeah.
or
Sorry.
some kind of food. It's just like, okay, so you need to cut that out. Like, you need to depart. Like, you need to do a ceremony and say goodbye. Because if you don't do that, they don't realize that fat, those carbs, all of those things that are in there, the hidden other things that they are not even aware of, is what's kind of triggering their skin. And a lot of the young people don't realize it, and especially with this new trend of going to these all these food places, they're not really understanding how much they're getting affected in their skin. They're not really understanding how much it's kind of depleting their skin. And now I have like this big thing of like box food. You'll never see me have box food because of how bad that is, and all of the unknown molecules that are in there just for preserving it. And they're like, oh my god, I'm just gonna go grab this at the store because there's so much ready make box foods. And I'm like, this is the biggest issue we have worldwide. And everyone, if you could just stop buying boxes of food and just buy the actual whole foods, you'll cut out
Yeah.
half of the issues that you're dealing with, because there's just so much nonsense out there that I get so sad when I see people buying it and thinking it's okay because they said it has this blue seal on it that says, low sodium. Guess what? There's other things in there that are worse than that sodium, right? And then, yeah, like going into your lifestyle and seeing, what you're doing on a regular basis. And I think another issue that people don't realize triggered their eczema or their acne is stress. What you're saying about stress is a major contributor, and people don't realize that even just chronic low grade stress right now is just borderline what's causing their skin to, go crazy. And that I recognize in myself even a few weeks ago, even now, I'm like, hold on, why am I getting a bit of a flare up on my skin? And I had to take like inventory of what I'm doing with my lifestyle. And I'm like, yeah, that's some stress. Yeah, those
Yeah,
are some issues, right?
definitely.
You don't think you're stressing until you stop and you're like, actually, yes, it is. That is major stress. And I think I need to reevaluate my choices right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes it's someone else having to point it out for you. Because a
Yeah.
lot of people, like you said, like they don't make that connection necessarily. But it's interesting when they finally kind of understand, okay, there might be a connection, and then we do treat the stress, and then seeing how that reflects in the skin is kind of, I think that's the affirmation when they
Hmm.
finally see it and go, okay, we've actually tested it and things have gotten better.
Yeah.
Now I kind of believe you. Now I see that that was an issue.
They don't think it's true until when there's proof, and the proof is like, oh, I don't have this symptom anymore. You were right that my stress was causing this. It wasn't the 5 burgers that I was eating every day. No, that's part of it.
Yeah.
Yes, it is actually. But the other part is the stress that you're just kind of thinking it's a-okay to be stressful, looking at your phone all day, not going to sleep on time, not getting enough sleep or proper sleep. Like all of those things really are a contributor. And I think now people really are taking proper inventory of seeing all of those things versus it just being like the one solution. I kind of call it like the triad. There's like 3 things, but for sure, stress is a major contributor. So
Yeah, I think,
mhm.
sorry to cut you off. I was just
No,
thinking
please.
even usually people even, I mean, a big stress of people with skin concerns is their skin.
Yeah.
So it's funny enough that like their skin gets worse and then they're stressing more about it. And then it's kind
Yeah.
of like this domino effect to this cycle where how are we going to get you out of this? And
Hmm.
sometimes it takes, I mean, it's hard, but it's talking to patients about the fact that, it's okay if your skin, if you have a few more pimples this month, it's okay. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be the end of the world. And that's probably the hardest part of my job
Hmm.
because, I mean, they're there in the first place because they care about their skin and because they want these things to go away.
Hmm.
But it's kind of breaking that connection or that power that you're putting your acne as like over your entire life, thinking
Yeah.
that it needs to be clear, this needs to be okay in order for me to put myself out there, whether it be
Hmm.
like, oh, take that new job or go meet that new person or
Hmm.
host this event. I can't do it because my skin doesn't look good. I can't do it because what if someone says something about this or what if someone makes a
Hmm.
comment? So I think there's just this whole section of skin and mental health that we
Hmm.
don't necessarily talk about too much because the focus is always just let's clear it up.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's hard to clear it up, or sometimes it's going to take time. And in that time, you don't want them to feel sad or upset or like mad at themselves or whatever it may
Hmm.
be.
Or even
So yeah,
disempowered.
yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah, because it is true. Like people, I never realized myself that it's like your skin. It's true. Like you want to feel good before you pursue something. You want to feel good and look good before you do something, but you don't realize that by you holding yourself back because of it, you add more stress onto what the whole situation's about. You're like, I can't do it because I
Mhm.
look this way. I'm not doing it because I don't look this way. And I'm mad because I'm not doing it because I don't feel good about doing this whole thing because I don't look this way. So it's like this whole rat race in a spiraling, kind of continuation. And people don't realize that's actually the other trigger to why your skin is flaring up because you're stopping yourself from doing something because of the skin not looking good when really you just got to do it anyway. And if you're accepted whether you look a certain way or you're not accepted because you don't look a certain way, that's not the problem. It is more so just feeling good that you're doing what you passionately like to do, or what you want to do. And if you're not accepted for it, it's okay. Just keep it moving, but still focus on your overall self care and health care. And it's just like it's kind of like a cycle that I feel it's sad because I felt that way when I was growing up and I had eczema from head to toe. I was like, oh, I can't do this. I can't show my skin. I can't do all of these things because of eczema. And eventually, when I started, focusing more on my skin and focusing more on just feeling better about my skin and whether or not it's flaring up today, I'm like, I'm still going to do it anyway. And eventually the skin started healing itself and sort of repairing. And I think if people focus on that more than just the appearance, it would be, so much better. I just think now with social media, everyone's about appearance. And because of that, they're like, oh my God, I don't look this way. And then, it just kind of creates like this crap storm and it just gets worse. So I appreciate you saying, it's like people are stressing because of that factor. So talk
Mhm.
to us like a typical way of how you treat them. Like what's their treatment plan and how do you kind of walk them through if they come in with this issue? What do you typically do?
So with the fact that they're stressing about their skin or just acne in general, or a bit of both.
Both. Yeah, I would love both. I think everyone would be like, I need to know acne, but I need to know about my skin. So I would love both. Yes, please.
So, I mean, a typical naturopathic visit is
Mm-hmm.
long. So it's usually around 75 minutes. And that's partially because we don't just, I mean, I start usually asking you about your skin,
Mm-hmm.
but if I only asked you about your skin, it wouldn't be that long of an appointment. So
Oh
I
yeah.
go through energy levels, sleep, what you're eating every day, how are your bowel movements, your recent blood work, surgeries, do you have headaches? I really go top to bottom
Yeah.
figuring out is there any other thing going on in the body that could be related to the skin or could be causing the skin to get worse. Sometimes we do some physical exams depending on what's going on. Usually I take pictures of the skin so we can also track progress because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
patients will come back and say like, "Oh, I don't think my skin's gotten any better." And I'm like,
So true.
"There's proof. There is
So
proof."
true. You're like, I have it from 5 days ago. It actually got better. You see that cluster?
Yeah.
It's gone.
I'm like, it's fine. Do you remember? And they're like, oh, yeah. So I think pictures are very, very important. And then treatment plan, really, it's individualized. So it depends on A, what they're willing to do, what they're willing to
Mm-hmm.
change at this point, whether they want to start full blown, whole change in their life, or whether they want to do kind of baby steps. So it's up to them in a way. But if I had my ideal plan,
Yeah.
and a patient was willing to do whatever I'm willing to try,
Mm-hmm.
um, then we might start with blood work just to
Okay.
see if, is there blood sugar dysregulation? Is there some sort of other infection? Or, if they are having digestive concerns as well, if we think it might be candida or a virus or et cetera, then maybe we'll do a stool test just to
Mm-hmm.
figure out, again, what is the root cause. And usually either we wait for the results to come in and then kind of make our plan targeted based off that, or if they want to get started right away with things that are going to, reduce inflammation, bacterial, things like that, then I usually start with a little bit of nutrition, like I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So cleaning up the diet, avoiding the processed foods. If they're willing to give dairy a trial, like no dairy a trial, then we'll do that for a few weeks. And really it's no junk, increasing fish, increasing fruits and vegetables, because almost everyone I see does not either doesn't eat fruits and vegetables very often,
Yes.
doesn't like them, or just is not having enough fiber, period.
Mm-hmm.
So, usually working on improving that. We might do some supplements. Again, I love fish oils.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I do vitamin A, sometimes I do zinc. Again, depends on what they're coming in for. If
Yeah.
it's hormonal acne, sometimes we do DIM. And then from supplements and diet, sometimes again, we work on stress, whether I think, maybe you need to see a therapist about some things that are going on and making that referral.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they want to talk to me, I mean, that's also an option. It's whoever they feel comfortable with and who they feel that they're going to get benefit from.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, again, if sleep is an issue, then we work on sleep hygiene, like making sure we're going to bed at the same time every night. The fact that you're not bringing your laptop into bed and watching Netflix before bed,
Yeah.
whatever it may be that they need to start to fix. Even exercise.
Hmm.
People, I mean, it's great to exercise. Everyone talks about exercising, but I like it mainly, A, if they're stressed, so for their mental health,
Yeah.
starting to move their body and potentially, again, reducing stress, helping the skin. Also, like exercise because it allows us to sweat. So it allows the skin to kind of do its own detox, open those pores, and
Hmm.
flush out what it needs to flush out.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't, they're not sweating. And some people just don't sweat. They'll say, like,
Yeah.
I don't sweat. And I'm like, do you do cardio? Like, what does your exercise look like? Are you only doing strength training?
Hmm.
So it's kind of switching around types of exercises they're doing sometimes, or
Hmm.
it's just saying you need to start somewhere. And
Yeah.
whatever they like, you know,
Yeah.
whatever's
And
going to get them moving.
it's good that you have a very well-rounded, well-balanced way of looking at it, because I find everyone just wants that one shortcut way of like just going straight to one solution, whereas in you're looking at it from a very broad spectrum, looking at all of the different areas of contribution, and then saying, okay, let's start with a little bit at a time, a little piece here, a little piece there to fill that full pie. So then that way, a person feels like it's attainable, but it's tangible and I can, actually succeed in it. I think, unfortunately, with the traditional ways we've been kind of, exposed to, it's just been very much like, this is it, that's it, done. There's never been that analysis of all the other areas in their life that can be contributing it. And that's why I've always kind of laughed, but I loved it, where it's like it's an hour and a half ideally to sit down and talk with us, because it's not
Mhm.
just saying let's just get to a quick solution really quickly or and then out the door. We're so used to, you got 15 seconds to tell me what your problem is. And that's it. Whereas in this, it's like I'm having a full out diagnostic conversation to go through my issues, and then these are the areas we're going to focus on, and then let's get moving forward. So it feels very customized and personable, and it makes that person feel relief, relief that they're getting somewhere, but someone actually listened to many of the things that they're concerned about and address things that they never even thought about. So, yeah, I appreciate it. Can you give us an experience of a person where it was like that? Like you went through like everything and they're like, what the heck? And then they're on a better path now.
I think there are some patients that book in and they're like, I've never seen a naturopath before. I don't know what to expect. So usually I'll give them a bit of an explanation, but usually, I mean, there's sometimes where I have patients saying, why are you asking about this? Like I came in for my skin. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I know you're here for your skin. So I'll give a bit of an explanation as to,
Hmm.
what the connection is, because a lot of people don't understand that there is like a gut skin connection, that there is like this brain connection to our skin. So the education piece definitely is important. But I would say most patients, once I explain it, they're an open book. And I think a
Hmm.
lot of times patients also have never sat down with someone who's asked so many questions
Yes.
or that actually, I don't want to say cares to ask the questions, because
Hmm.
I think if family doctors had the time, they would ask the same questions that I do. But I think they feel like I think they feel heard, I think is the better way to put it.
Yes. Yes.
That someone's taking the time to actually figure out what's going on with me rather than, like you said, just giving me something. And it may placate me for a while and make my skin better for a while, but then I'm back to square one. So I would say once they see the results or start to see things getting better, understanding why their skin is the way it is, then it's almost a switch from what they've always gotten in terms of care to what care can be in the future.
Hmm.
Again, being something long term, something where I can get my skin better and it won't come back. Like it won't flare back. And if it does, I know why it's flaring and I have the tools to fix
Hmm.
it. And I always say my goal is not to see you all the time. In fact, I want you to get better and not come.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
want you to have it figured out. Or I say, I want to give you all the possible tools that you could need so that you feel well equipped to handle your skin. Because the
Hmm.
worst part is when your skin's flaring and you don't know what to do, you don't know why it is the way it is, and
Yeah.
then it's frustrating, you feel lost, and then that's when you start to feel upset, right? And
Hmm.
again, go down the rabbit hole of I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that, and no one's going to be able to help me. So I think it's giving patients, the education, the tools, and the hope that things can get better and it doesn't need to be up and down, or like a cycle like it always has perhaps been in the past.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's every patient's different, but I would say that's my goal, at least as a practitioner, through the
Yeah.
visits.
No, I appreciate you saying that. It is true. Like the whole point of the healthcare system is really to help people get onto the path of getting the assistance they need, but it to be sustainable where later on, if something were to happen, they're like, oh, I know how to deal with this. I know what this issue is, so I can go ahead and address it versus it being more of like this reliant, consistent, I got to go back, I got to go back, and got to go back. And that is kind of where I was, in my earlier days, is that every month I was going there and refilling my prescription because it was no longer, like effective and so forth. And it took me a while to be like, hold on. This is almost going on 2 to 3 years now. And I'm doing the same thing over and over again. And I'm having the same issue over and over again. And there's no solution. It's just like, this might work. This might work. This is stronger. This is stronger. And then I
Yeah.
just realized my skin was just getting worse and worse. And it just wasn't getting any better. So that I'm very happy to hear that's part of your overall value and morals with your clients is to help them find a long-term solution so that they're not having to come back and still be in that rat race, because I think a lot of people don't realize that it's not about going back to the doctor again next month. It's about, I shouldn't have to go back next month. I should be well aware of what my issue is and why I need to stop it. And that's something that I feel it needs to be a lot more anchored into people, is to not have this like residual constant appointment with doctors and having that consistent, oh, I need another prescription, this one's not working. Instead, it's like I'm coming back for a checkup because we're on our path to something, like what you're doing with people, but not to be like, oh, you're back again for the same issue. Let's try all over again and start this whole thing. It's more so
Yeah.
like you're building on top of the skills and the tools that you're providing them.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's the idea. Even I was talking with a colleague, I think it was last week, and she was
Hmm.
mentioning how, so she's a TCM doctor, traditional Chinese medicine doctor, and she said
Hmm.
that years and years and years ago, the doctor wouldn't get paid until the patient got better. If the
Oh,
patient didn't get better, they wouldn't get paid.
oh, we should have that.
And that's what we were talking about. We said, how funny, and what would medicine look like if
Yes.
you only got paid if patients got better? And how would
Yeah.
that change what we do? And would we be doing the same things we're doing now in terms of conventional medicine?
Hmm.
So yeah, it really got me thinking, but it goes back to the principle of the priority is always how can we get you better, and not just better for now, but
Yes.
really forever, at least long term, until whatever comes up. Hopefully
Hmm.
nothing comes up, but
Yeah.
things are lots new in life, and hopefully it's not a new concern in the future. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, I just thought it was an interesting idea.
No, I think actually that's the best idea. And they need to adopt that as soon as possible in North America. Because North America has the major issue. And if they literally put that in, goodness gracious, the world would be so different. The whole
Oh yeah.
industry would be different. And it's just, we're in that kind of critical time right now in overall world where it's like, crashing or excelling, like it's certain practices are kind of crashing, but if they had that principle in, and it's like this is the law, holy moly, we would see a whole lot of institutions going down,
Oh,
because they'd be like, what, actually, I need to get paid, it's been 5 years.
yeah. No one's gonna know why.
So we need to make you better. So let's show you how to make you better. So I think that would be perfect, perfect, perfect. So, well, I appreciate you being on our, Skin Deep podcast. So I want our viewers and our listeners to know exactly where they can find you, what you're up to for the next couple of months, and how they can really get in touch with you, because I feel what you're doing is exactly what I embody and I love, and our listeners really want that. So I would love for you to tell them a little bit more about what you're doing. Go ahead.
So, I mean, so my focus is mainly skin concerns, also hair concerns. I also work with women's health. So that could be a range of things from fertility to, PCOS, painful periods, even concerns related to mental health, like anxiety and depression, and kind of how that relates to the skin or how it just exists on its own. So right now I am practicing in Bolton, Ontario at Wildflower Health and Wellness. And I
Mhm.
also practice in Woodbridge at Tri Health Wellness Center. So I see patients in both clinics, and yeah, I see an array of different things, but
Mhm.
this is kind of my approach, and hopefully, you get a good idea of where my priorities are as a healthcare practitioner and kind of where I want to see medicine going in the future.
Beautiful. Thank you. And then, of course, everyone could go ahead and book consultations with you and so forth at either of the locations and so forth. They'll figure out, for example, the schedule, or do you have like a website that people can find you on there? And then that way they figure out which location they can go to, or.
So it's www.drangelica.com. And then on there, it's my whole name. So if you didn't get it
Don't worry,
already, it's
I
in
will
there.
put it in the show notes.
Perfect. So it's a long one. And then on there, it'll show you exactly what days I'm at which location, what times, and then you can either book. I do a free 15-minute discovery call if you have questions about whether it's, going to be the right fit or my approach or questions about your care in general if we were to move forward with things. And then I do obviously the intakes, 75 minutes, and follow-ups depending. But yeah, I offer services at both clinics. You can also find me on Instagram, dr.mastro.nd, or through obviously our clinic websites. They'll have my information in there too.
Beautiful. So I always ask these two questions to my guests. I never tell them that I'm going to ask them this, just because our viewers love it.
Right?
So
Put me on the spot.
I know, and I love it because then you really have no choice but to say the honest truth. So the first
Yeah,
question is, what is something you do for your self-care practice?
that is a good question. For my self-care practice, I would say time spent alone. I know that can be
Ah,
in different ways,
yeah.
but almost whether it be just going on a walk and driving myself to a location kind of further away,
Yes.
going on a walk by myself. Solo dates are my new thing. So sometimes I'll
Me
drive
too.
myself to somewhere that I want to go.
Yeah.
Especially it's hard. I mean, people are busy and, life gets away from you. So I think
Mhm.
spending time with myself and taking myself out to do the things I want to do rather than waiting to do it with someone else is my form of self-care. I really enjoy it. Yeah.
I call it, and I'm so happy you're saying it. I call it my self-care date. So at least once a month or once every week. I used to do it once a week. I would go on a self-care date, and it would be the same thing. It would be like by myself, no one call me, everything's on silent, and I just do whatever I want to do. So I love that you do that same thing. That's amazing. And
Love
last question is, what is something, it could be an item, a product, a food, whatever, that you have to have, that you cannot live without, and it's for your skincare or your self-care practice?
skincare or self-care practice. I think my weighted blanket. I love it. I love it, especially now that it's getting colder.
Yes.
It keeps me warm. It's just when I'm feeling stressed out, I put it on. It helps me have a good night's sleep. It's kind of like my emotional support blanket.
Oh
But
my
yeah, I
gosh.
love it
That is so
every single day.
amazing. My sister has one, and I was like, I don't understand, getting it.
You
And then
either
I
love
put
it
it
or you
on,
hate it.
and I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. No, this is the best thing ever. I need to get one of these.
Yeah.
Like, these are so amazing. So I resonate with it on behalf of my sister. I never realized it, but I'm so happy to know about that little secret with you. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like a big hug.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for being on the Skin Deep podcast by Everbella. I appreciate you and your insights because it's so important for all of our listeners, but just for people to understand what are the causes for their acne, but what are the other benefits of seeing a naturopathic doctor? Because again, we need to spread more awareness of it in terms of natural remedies or other solutions. So I appreciate you being on here and sharing your insights and your expertise.
And thank you for having me. It was great.
Thanks. Thanks for tuning in to the Skin Deep podcast. Don't forget to download your free guide to our 10 hacks to great skin. Just check the link in our bio. I look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Have an amazing day, everyone, and enjoy your self-care Sunday.